Hello, ladies, and thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Queen's Journey. Over 10 million women annually fall victim to domestic violence. This systematic pattern of power and control includes physical violence, sexual violence, threats, economic, and psychological abuse. Sometimes the abuse is highly visible and other times completely undetectable. With the help of our special guests, we will find out how to recognize such abuse and become better advocates for women everywhere. Welcome to Queen's Journey. I am your host, Janine McBath. Today's guest is a domestic violence survivor, advocate, activist, and motivational speaker. Please help me welcome Nisha Himes. Hi, Nisha. Thank you
Hello.
so much for being a part of
Thank,
this episode. We are just so excited that you have come to share your story with us today.
thank you so much, Lady J, for having
Well,
me.
we're glad you're with us. Listen, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you are passionate about.
Okay, so my name is Nisha Himes. I'm a domestic violence survivor, as you said, turned advocate, activist. I'm very passionate about bringing awareness to domestic violence, not just in our community,
Mm-hmm,
but in our community and beyond.
mm-hmm,
I am a domestic violence specialist and doing this work, having worked in the community through my nonprofit organization, but also with local prosecutors'
mm-hmm.
offices, law enforcement agencies, and just learning the different avenues to bring awareness and eradicate domestic violence.
Oh, that is so awesome,
Thank
Nisha.
you.
Often we hear the story of how relationships end, but the beginning is just as important. So,
Yes.
can you kind of tell me, how did you meet your partner?
Yes, so I met my partner through a former coworker.
Okay.
This is actually her brother. So every other day or so, she would say, "I need you to meet my brother.
Uh-huh.
You guys have a lot in common."
Mm-hmm.
I eventually did meet him at a birthday party that she had, and we hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
We exchanged phone numbers at the end of the night, and we began, I would say, just dating, getting to know one
Mm-hmm.
another. That stage where it's what you doing, beautiful,
Uh-huh.
how was your day, all of
Yes,
that stuff
yes.
as ladies eat up,
Right.
and it just took off from there.
Wow. Now, you didn't know anything more about this partner other than just meeting him for a date and
No, so I knew what she had told me.
uh-huh.
Well, you guys, very driven, you're
Mm-hmm.
very goal
Mm-hmm.
oriented. He's a good dad. He has a good job. These
Mm-hmm.
things, and then when we met that night at her birthday party, we hit it off. I noticed he had a sense of humor. We
Mm-hmm.
both loved to dance.
Mm-hmm.
He smelled good, all of that stuff. So
Yes, okay.
just
Yes,
we.
yes.
It was just one of those things where it's like, okay, and having been out of a relationship for several months at that point
Okay.
and just looking to test the waters, I guess, get back out there. So then we began the course of getting to know one another through conversation. So talking on the phone, texting every now and then, and eventually started going on dates here and there. So in the beginning, no, I absolutely did not know
Wow.
any of the signs or the red flags that I would later come to see.
Wow. I mean, he put his best foot forward.
Yes,
His okay.
yes. And I think it was either red flags that I didn't know were red flags
Right.
or chose to ignore.
Wow. Okay. Well, first in relationships, there are also memorable ones. There are first dates and first kiss and so on. When was the first time that you saw that your partner was abusive, either verbally or physically?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So I think when we ask that question, a lot of people just assume, oh, when's the first time they hit you? Not realizing that the abuse oftentimes starts before it even becomes physical
Mm-hmm.
and before it even becomes verbal. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't know about the gaslighting or the
Mm-hmm.
isolation or the manipulation. So knowing what I know now,
Mm-hmm.
I know that there were signs again beforehand where if I didn't answer the phone, let's say by the second ring, maybe it took the fourth or the fifth ring, then it was who you talking to, who was at your house, why you didn't answer the phone. It was things like, because I do spoken word, so, well,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want you to go to the open mic today. Why don't we just spend time together? If you was really feeling me like I was feeling you,
Mm-hmm.
then you would want to spend more time. So these are these things that at the time I was just like, oh, he just likes me. He wants to spend time. Or I didn't question the fact that I had to explain why I didn't answer the phone by the second ring. It was the third or the fourth ring. So I would say the first year presented some signs, but by the time I recognized it, it was already physical. And even then, because I would fight back, I would defend myself, as a lot of women do. They say, well, I fight back. Everybody fights in relationships. So even then, when it became physical, I didn't look at it as abusive because I had a preconceived notion of what a domestic violence victim looked like. And
Right.
by my count, that wasn't me.
Right. Right. So, you kind of, over that year, you kind of, did you ignore it kind of and just let it keep going and just said it'll change, or maybe I
Yes.
can change him?
Yes, because the ones that I didn't know were signs or red flags like love bombing, the gaslighting, I guess, which we'll talk about a little bit,
Yeah.
but I just didn't know that was signs of, okay, this relationship is unhealthy and leading to being toxic and outright abusive. But what I did see, I wrote it off. I was like, oh, he just had a bad day, or oh, he said
Right.
sorry, or I'm being too sensitive, or being dramatic, or overreacting. So even when it didn't feel right and I knew something was wrong, I was just like, that's not what this is. Because I was always told domestic violence looks like black eyes, domestic violence
Right.
looks like
Right. Right.
bruises. So before
Right.
it even got to that point, I was just telling myself, no, I would never be in a situation like that. So that's not what this is. He just
Right.
has a bad day.
Well, talk to us a little bit about gaslighting, because I'm unaware of what that
Okay.
is, and maybe our audience would like to know, what is
Sure.
gaslighting?
So, gaslighting is a very, very common and effective form of psychological and emotional abuse. It's when the abuser makes you question your perception of reality or judgment.
Mm.
It started from a play back in 1938, I believe, in which there was this guy, he married this.
Turner classic movies. Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yes,
yes.
he married a rich woman,
That's
and the
right.
whole point was to make her feel like she was
It's
losing her
crazy.
mind
That's right.
so that he could gain access to her riches. So then it
Right.
later turned into a movie in the
That's
40s,
right.
and that's basically what it's on. So it could be something as simple as, if I took your bracelet and hid it somewhere, and then you came to me and said, hey, have you seen my bracelet? And I'm like, no, I haven't seen it. And you said, I had it right here on this couch. And I say, no, I haven't seen it. And then I miraculously find it from the place where I hid it
Right.
and say, oh, I found this on the desk. You would lose your head if it wasn't attached.
That's right.
So then you're just like, wow, okay, I thought I had it here, but they found it over there.
Right.
So then it's, you know what, you called me this name. I didn't appreciate when you called me this name. And it's like, I never said that. You must have misheard me. You know what, you had a long day. You're stressed out. Let me just fix you a glass of wine, and you'll be okay. So then when the abuse and these things actually start happening, you really question if you're remembering these things correctly. You question if you're being dramatic, or if you're
Right.
being too sensitive, or you're
Right.
overreacting. If it's like, I was just playing with you. You're trying to pick a fight with me for what? I love you. I wouldn't pick this fight with you. Why are you trying to start with me? So you start questioning if these
Right.
things are really happening, and it makes it that much easier to ignore the abuse or overlook it because you don't believe that it's happening.
Right. So it's also a source of manipulation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't tell you how many women I've spoken to who have visible bruises on them
Right.
and will ask me, do you see these marks on my neck? And when I tell them, yes, I do, then they break down crying because their partner has convinced them that not only are there no marks there, but that they never assaulted them in the first place for those markings to be there. I've spoken to women who have been pushed down the stairs, but have been convinced by their partner that they tripped and that they tried to catch them and save them. So by the end of that conversation, they're apologizing to their partner for accusing them. So that's how effective it is.
So when we talk about the worth of a woman,
Yes.
when you were going through this in that year, how did you feel? Did you feel like you didn't have value, or, I mean, talk to us a little bit
Yes.
about that.
So this was a 5-year long relationship. And as I tell people, once they get you mentally, the rest is easy. So domestic violence, abusive relationships don't start off like you go on your first date. This person slaps you before dessert comes out, and you say, oh my goodness, they're abusive. I'm not going to date them anymore. I'm not going to talk to them anymore. It's really a gradual pattern of power and control. That's what abuse is about. An example I always give is, let's say you had a frog and you had a pot of boiling water. You put that frog in that pot, they're going to immediately jump out. But if you put it in a pot of lukewarm water and gradually turn the degree
That's
up
right.
every other day or so, It doesn't recognize that
No.
it's in danger.
Mm-mm.
So for me, I'm in this pot of lukewarm water, and day by day, every other day or so, my self-worth, my value, all of that is just being chipped away. So it got
Yes.
to a point when he started outright telling me, nobody wants you, you'll never amount to anything, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're worthless. I started to believe it. And then
Mm.
once I started to believe those things, by the time it became physical, it was easier for me to stay in that relationship because I was like, well, I deserve this. Nobody wants me. He's right. My other
Mm.
relationships didn't work out. I do have two children, two different fathers. He's right. I am in this job working in this cubicle and not going anywhere. He's right. So all of these things, every time he said it was like, he's right, he's right, he's right, he's right.
Mm.
So it was easy for him to gain that power and control because I felt like I deserved everything he was dishing to me.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, it is said in the average, it takes 7 attempts before a survivor
Yep.
permanently leaves an abusive partner. When was the moment you decided, I got to leave this?
Yes. And that is such a true, because I think it was right about 7 times. And it's not even you get abused 7 times and you that
Yeah.
seventh time you're like, oh, I'm out. It's you can be in an abusive relationship for months before you make the first attempt, and then another year before you make the second attempt, and another year before you make the third attempt because there's so many different barriers. For me, what it was, I was in this outright abusive relationship. I've had broken bones, black eyes, I've been strangled, I've been called names just too horrific to even
Mm.
say here. But the final straw for me was during the course of an argument,
Mm-hmm.
and he was accusing me of messing around with someone else, not being where I said I was.
Mm-hmm.
And he called my mother and my sisters, who I'm very close to, the N word.
Mm.
And why that stands out is because this was an interracial relationship.
Mm.
So when you add that component in, when you have someone calling you worthless for months and years, but then when they say you're a worthless black, whatever, you're a dumb black. So when you add that racial component into
Mm.
it,
Mm.
so for me, it was one thing for me to not stand up for myself, but it was another for me to not stand up for the women I love most, and they weren't there to do it for themselves. So that was the final straw for me.
Now, your family, did they, I mean, how did they become a part of your rescue, kind of?
And they didn't know. And I'm very, very close with my family. So I'm from New Jersey originally. So
Mm-hmm.
most of my family is in New Jersey. So it's very easy to say, oh, yeah, I'm fine when they live states away. And my father is here in the area. And again, oh, yes, daddy, I'm good. I'm fine. So no one's seeing me disappearing on this island. My friends are noticing that I'm not going to open mics or I'm canceling all of our hangouts and all of
Mm.
that stuff. But nobody really knew what was going on because I was so ashamed and embarrassed and just felt like I didn't know what to do. And the one time I decided to speak out and ask for help to someone who wasn't related to me or anything, they laughed,
Wow.
So it was just difficult. And to this day, my mom, it's hard for her to hear everything, but they were very instrumental in my survivor's journey once I found the strength to
Now,
leave.
did you have children during this time?
No, thankfully,
Okay.
no. I do
Okay.
have two children from
Okay.
a previous
Okay.
relationships, but
Okay.
no, I do not have children, and it was still very difficult to
Right.
get away. So when you add those components of having kids or pets or joint property or anything like that, it makes it that much harder to get away from this person.
Wow. Wow. How long did it take you after you made that attempt to break away
Hmm.
for you just to reclaim who you were?
I'm still doing it. When you leave a relationship like that, I left and the end of 2012 and still dealt with things and trying to get away from him
Mm-hmm.
from good for good. I still have emails even from 2013, 2014. So when I say, "Oh, I left for good in 2012," there was almost that time where I almost went back even after the last time or the last time, but it's still an everyday journey. The thing about healing, it isn't linear, it's up and down. Sometimes there's good days and sometimes it's ugly days. You don't see any bruises or anything on me, but I still struggle with proving to myself I'm enough. So I think that's what drives me. I'm such a go-getter, but almost to a fault where it's like
Right.
I have to say, this is good enough, this is good enough. So it's an everyday thing, but I do think I'm amazing. I'm dope. I think I'm one of the
You are
flyest people. I know.
amazing.
I mean, As I think
You are
every woman
amazing.
should. I
You
think you
are.
should. Your crown matches every outfit. That's
Yeah.
something I say. So why not put it on
That's right.
today?
That's right.
So
You're beautiful.
thank
And,
you.
for you to even have the courage to share your story, we really, really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Well, ladies, we've got to take a break,
Yes.
and I'm going to be right back.
As a motivational speaker and domestic violence education specialist, Nisha Himes provides consulting services, training, and workshop facilitation to both individuals and corporations, empowering and enlightening many in the realities and truths of domestic violence. With her background as a survivor turned specialist, she took her activism and established Grow Foundation, Inc., a nonprofit providing aid to survivors rebuilding their lives after abuse. The GROW team helps connect individuals and families affected by domestic violence to resources and work to support local organizations in their efforts to eradicate domestic violence. To contact Nisha Himes Consulting, call 757-384-6956. To connect with GROW Foundation, Inc., call 757-777-3359 or text their hotline at 757-835-8204.
Well, we're back, and we're so glad that Nisha Himes is with us today, and she's sharing her story. And we're just so excited about you being
Thank
with
you.
us today and being able to share your story. I know you've been in a music video, and let's talk about that a minute. You've been in a music video.
Yes,
You're
yes,
boxing,
yes, yes,
okay? Because you
yes.
do some boxing,
I do. I'm
okay?
a little nice with it. Okay.
Tell me, how did you feel doing that?
So that was very empowering. I have a friend, her name is Roberta. She's an amazing artist here locally, but not just locally, like nationally, a country singer.
Uh huh.
And just breaking barriers as far as
Wow.
being a woman of color in that
Right.
genre. So she
Right.
contacted me earlier this year. She says she has this song called Too Much of a Woman,
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to just spotlight what she deemed a strong woman who has overcome adversity.
Oh.
And we talked about the video, what we wanted it to look like, and we shot it at the boxing gym that I go to. Shout out to Match Bout.
Yes.
So we shot it at the boxing gym, and it was about a 12-hour shoot. So me working out for 12 hours. It was freezing. They kept spraying us with water bottles to make it look like we were sweating, but really it was freezing in there. And it was amazing. And when the final project came out, it was featured on country music
Oh,
television
that's
and in May
awesome,
premiered at
Nisha.
Times Square.
Oh,
So
that's so awesome.
thank
And I
you.
mean, you're a good little boxer too. I have
Yes,
to say,
thank you.
I've seen your stance
Thank
and
you.
everything,
Thank you.
and I bought some of your boxing
Yes,
gloves, and I
yes.
use them. And my trainer would say, "You're really hitting me hard."
As you should. Why not?
That's right.
Right.
I want to get it out. But
Right.
I understand when you originally decided to give back to families affected by domestic violence, you received some resistance. Talk about
Yes.
that a little bit.
Yes. So I started sharing my story after I left that relationship via my spoken word poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I started doing that, the more I started getting asked to speak at various places like schools,
Mm-hmm.
churches, rallies, things like that. So what would happen is that survivors started reaching out to me for advice. So
Yeah.
for me, what was supposed to help heal me, I found was helping other people. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, I want to do more. So I started applying for jobs at like shelters and prosecutors' offices and things like that. And something that I kept getting told
Mm-hmm.
was that I didn't have the right experience because I didn't have a degree. And for me, I'm all for higher education. I'm actually in school now,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no piece of paper on this earth that can
Mm-mm.
tell you how to survive domestic
Mm-mm.
violence if you've never gone
Mm-mm.
through it. So I don't know if it was the rebellion, me being from Jersey, but I said, I'm
Right.
gonna start my own organization.
Right.
And who's gonna tell me I don't have the right experience to run my own nonprofit?
Right.
So
Right.
I started Grow Foundation in August of
Oh,
2016. Thank you very much.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And we'll be 7 years old in a couple of months.
Wow. And so Grow is now reaching women that have been domestically abused.
Yes.
Okay. And kind of tell me a little bit about what it does.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So GROW stands for Girls Recognizing Our Worth, and we help women. We also help men, those in the trans community, LGBT.
Mm-hmm.
If you have been
Mm-hmm.
victimized by domestic
Mm-hmm.
violence, we're here to offer that support. So we have three main programs, crisis intervention being one of them, where we'll put a survivor in emergency hotel lodging at an
Right.
undisclosed location in the event area shelters are not able to take them. If they're
Right.
full, COVID, around that time, it was very difficult for survivors to
Right.
get into shelter. We
Right.
also have a monthly support group that we facilitate at the boxing gym.
Right,
So that's
right.
facilitated by myself and a licensed therapist. And then we also teach boxing techniques as well. And we do a lot of community outreach and
Wow.
awareness as well.
Wow. That's so awesome.
Thank
So
you.
proud of you.
Thank you.
And I know that abuse is not just a man and a woman.
Right.
It could be a woman and a woman
Yes.
abused, or even a man being abused. Have you seen that statistically? How is that?
Yes. So statistically, is 1 in 3 women will experience domestic violence, with 1 in 4 being severely impacted by severe intimate partner violence. And then there's 1 in 4 men who will experience intimate partner violence, with 1 in 7 experience severe intimate partner violence. So doing the work that I do in the community through my nonprofit organization, we've had a few men come as far as within the last 7 years, but when I worked in the prosecutor's office and the law enforcement agency, that's where I saw the most male cases. I think with the community advocacy, men have to feel more comfortable.
Right.
One, recognize that, okay,
Right.
I am a man, but I can
Right.
experience domestic violence.
Right.
But working in the legal system, then these are people who are forced to be in this system. So if the police came out and now there's charges that have been pressed and now they have to go to court, that's when they were seeing me when I was the victim advocate, or when I work in the police department and we're getting these police reports and I'm having to call and say, hey, hello, sir, I understand you was in a domestic violence situation. And that whole dynamic, I mean,
Yeah.
some of the worst cases I've seen have been men, not just amongst men, but as a whole.
Wow.
In the 10 years that I've been doing this, some of the worst cases I've seen have been men, where women have been the aggressors, or if it's man on man, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Now, how do you feel? Because working with women, you become very passionate
Yes.
about what you do. I work with the House of Esther. I get very locked into these women.
Yes.
And, but how do you feel when don't, they don't keep going? They just go back.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
That's tough. It's tough as a survivor. It's tough as an advocate. It's tough because you understand it. You understand that it's about planting the seed. So even if something I say doesn't make them make the decision today to say, you know what, I'm done, maybe they'll remember it a month from now, or 6 months from now, or a year from now. And I've actually had that, where survivors have
Yeah.
fallen off the face of the earth. They're not answering my calls, my emails, none of my advocates, or they're not answering calls from them. So I just have to pray for them and say, okay, I just hope they're
Right.
okay. And
Right.
then a year or two later, they reach out and say, you know what, when you said this to me 2 years ago, I always remembered that. And now I'm safe and I'm happy and I'm happily married and I'm in school
Oh,
and I'm
that's
working.
good.
So that's happened more times than I can count. So I just have to hold on to that.
Yeah.
And then know that even for the ones who do go back and may make the choice to never leave that situation, that I've done my part, and that hopefully they find the courage and find the
Right.
strength to be able to make that decision.
So it's a seed that you sow,
Yes.
in
Yes.
them. And, eventually that seed will grow and
Yes.
they'll make a change,
Yes.
they make the right decision. But it's the planting of the seed,
Yes.
and we plant seeds and we're not sure how they're going to grow. We don't know whether we're going to be the part of that growth, but somewhere along the line, somebody else will come along and water that seed and
Exactly.
help them along the way. That's so
Exactly.
good. What can people in the community do to help your organization?
That's a great question.
Yes.
Money. No, I'm joking.
Oh, money works. Money works.
Money works. The problem, I mean, is bigger than us. Everyone knows someone who's experienced domestic violence, even if you don't know that you do. It affects us all literally. It doesn't just stay within the four walls of those homes. It affects children who are going to school and witnessing these things in their home. It's affecting the woman who goes to work and is covering bruises. That's something I used to do all the time. And so ways that you can help, one is be a support system to a survivor. I would rather a survivor not have to call
Right.
Grow Foundation or a local DV
Right.
shelter or the national hotline. I would rather them be able to not even get in that situation. So if we can be proactive rather than reactive,
Right.
and start empowering one another, these
that's
girls,
good.
these women.
That's good.
If you are inclined to help Grow, as far as just reaching out to us, as far as volunteering, we're always looking for dedicated volunteers because we cannot do this work alone.
That's right.
You can go to our website and look at items that we need as far as donating, whether it's toiletries, whether it's clothing, shoes, undergarments, money, because it takes money to be able to put these
Yes.
survivors in
That's right.
hotels, or to get
That's
them
right.
an Uber or Lyft, to get to the magistrate's office or the police department or to that job interview. You can also help by spreading the word about domestic violence,
Right.
doing things like this,
Right.
using your platform. You don't have to be an advocate
Right.
to be part of the change that we need to see. You can just be someone who says, you know what? I feel like my neighbor is going through something. I'm going to give her a hotline number.
Right.
And that makes a world of a difference. So it's
Right.
about being a champion for the cause and doing what you can with the resources that you have.
That's awesome. And, as we have talked, and how Sylvester wants to be a partner in
Yes.
helping you with these young ladies, and I know the hotlines really do work, because we just got one of our ladies in our transition home through the
Awesome.
hotline, so they do work. And, we got a whole lot of work to do. And as a community, we can make this work.
Yeah.
A community of women or even men that will give and just see, what can I do to help somebody?
Yeah, we gotta be, and no victim blaming. It's easy to say, well, why don't you just leave, which is the question.
It's not as easy as
that
that.
I hate. And the thing is, I remember asking a friend that when I was in my 20s, her going through this abusive relationship. I was like, girl, why don't you just get out? And she shut down and never talked to me about that relationship again. And now I see why.
Nice.
So it could be changing the narrative. Instead of saying, why don't you just leave? What are the barriers preventing you from getting to safety, and how can I help you overcome those barriers?
Yeah.
You're essentially asking the same thing, but one is very empowering and one is very accusatory.
Right. It's very easy for us to be judgmental
Yes.
to another and say like that, just get out.
Right.
But they don't understand the pain and
Right.
just walking through just how they feel about themselves and those kind of things.
Right.
And so, we have to be careful
Right.
of that kind
And
of
the most
stuff.
dangerous time is when they're leaving.
Yeah.
So we have to think about that. They're
That's right.
most likely to be killed
That's
when they
right.
have left or are looking to leave.
That's right. Wow. Wow. Well, Nisha, before we close out this week's episode, we wanted to ask you, one thing could you not leave home without?
Jeez. And you know what? I should have had this answer before.
One thing.
Only one?
Yeah. Well, you can
No,
do two.
there are
I'll let
two?
you do two. I'll let you do two.
Okay, one thing is my gym bag because I'm always going boxing. So
Okay.
I'm literally going there when I leave here. And something that I'll always leave home without, but something I have to always have is chocolate chip cookies.
Really?
Why not?
Why chocolate
I
chip
deserve it.
cookies?
Because it's like the Beyonce of cookies. Now, why not? But people sometimes say it's basic, and you got those snickerdoodle people or those no raisin, but nah, chocolate chip cookies.
Chocolate chip
You get me a
cookies.
good chocolate chip cookie, fresh baked,
Wow.
then I know you really care.
And so that's why you work out, because you be eating chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah, I literally was eating chocolate chip cookies before I came here today. So.
Well, see, I watch you when you work out, and I'm like, she works out really hard. I can't do that. But I see why, because you eat those chocolate chip cookies. That's why.
Right.
Okay. Well, we're so glad that you have been with us. And we're glad that you were able to share your story, because somebody is going to be touched by this story today.
so.
And, they're on the brink of wanting to make that decision. And I just pray that after hearing you today, that they are going to say, yes, I can do this. If she can do it,
so.
I can do it.
hope
So
so.
thank you so much
Thank
for
you
being
for
with
having
us.
me. Thank you.
Who stole your worth? Was it physical, and the bruises remained covered, unrecognizable to anyone else but yourself? Or was it mental, wreaking havoc every waking moment? Queens, let us change that narrative today for tomorrow. Your worth is priceless, and we are here to free you from anyone who says less. I hope you found today helpful, and I look forward to our next gathering, showing and sharing how we do life together to strengthen and to encourage one another along this Queen's journey.
This is a love note. A love note dedicated to every single word that was supposed to tear me down. Syllable by syllable, letter by letter. 26 reasons to leave, but only needed 2 to stay. You and I. This is for every adjective that couldn't describe words in pain, and every noun I tried to remember when you forgot you said you'd change. All I knew was I didn't feel like a person. I hated this place, but I was too afraid to get my things. This is for all of your I love yous when I didn't love myself, and every empty I'm sorry when I didn't value my wealth. I am priceless, and well, you are sorry. You are sorry. Yet I remember every single gasp of air that you ever stole from me. deflating my lungs like the heart-shaped balloons that you gave me in February. But this was June, and yet you were still cold. Your hateful words morphed into verbs, and the violence always had a comma after it. It seemed no matter the time of month with you, my period was always late. I give this to every broken bone that ever healed before my heart did. For every black and blue bruise that painted my body like canvases kin to my ancestors. Whipping my so-called disrespect into shape. You beat me, and you beat me, and you beat me. Or so you think you did. But I stand here tall, today and forever, backbone as straight as the line you crossed all those years ago, head held high, wearing a crown made of 24-karat confidence, no longer a slave to the notion that I will die a victim, but rather live a victor. I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor that did more than survive. I became alive. I became a fighter. I became a fighter armed with the love of self, my family, and a voice for the voiceless. A shoulder to catch the tears of the worthy who feel worthless. A soulmate and a God who proved my pain had a purpose. I'm a survivor. I've been kicked. I've been hit. I've been broken. But I've never, ever been beaten.
Helping each other.